Hello and welcome to another episode of the LendAPI Partner Podcast. Today, my guest is Ema Rouf, who's co-founder and president at Pave. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we're going to start off with talking about how Pave got started. What's the origin story?
Yeah, so we started Pave during the pandemic. It was a problem we had seen over and over, which is that a growing population of Americans are just not getting access to fair credit. And we started about 4 years ago, but we've been on this journey for many years before that. So this is actually the third data company that I started, all with the same co-founder, who also doubles up as my husband. And prior to Pave, we were actually focused on a similar problem in Africa, where most people don't have any credit report. And we were able to prove creditworthiness just using telecom and mobile money data. And when we saw that, and we took a step back and realized, okay, well, more than 100 million Americans have the same problem. They don't have perfect FICO scores, but they have, healthy savings. They have an ability to pay, and lenders simply can't see that side of their data story to be able to underwrite them with better credit and better rates. So that's a problem we set out to solve about 4 years ago.
Well, so serial entrepreneur with the same co-founder, who's also your husband. That I think sounds like a winning team. If it's already the third company that you've founded, that sounds pretty good. Now, what is the key, the number one use case that you guys solve for at Pave?
Yeah, so the primary use case are lenders who are serving both consumers or SMBs who might not have perfect credit. So what that means is non-prime borrowers, call them a FICO score of 670 and below, which again is a massive population, the majority of the population, and it's growing. And they need a different data set and a different insight into that borrower to separate between who has the ability to repay, especially in the near term, and who might not. So whose finances are trending positively? How do you get a more complete picture of their cash flows? How do you use that for near-term predictions to basically expand access, to approve more borrowers while reducing the risk and being able to offer better rates? That's, I would say, the primary use case.
So helping better understand customers, not just from the traditional credit bureau data, but alternative data or other data as well. So to get a better, richer picture, so you can also assess the risk of what traditionally might be perceived as too risky, or that financial institutions were not able to underwrite. That sounds like a great use case.
Exactly, because when you think about traditional scores, which work very well, especially for the top portion of Americans who are, call them super prime. For everyone else, a lender looks at a borrower and they have maybe, a lower FICO score. And then they have to ask, okay, well, what other data can we use to assess the good versus bad, or the able versus unable to pay? And how do you know which borrowers are trending positively? And that's where cash flow really has the strength of looking into the details in the context of, okay, the person has a lower score because they had a large medical expense, or they went through a divorce, or all these millions of reasons for why that happened. But they have stable income, they have savings ability, they have an ability to repay. So going forward, that score will trend back up. But how do you see that faster? And how do you see that and analyze that near-term risk more accurately?
Yeah, that is great. Now, can you tell me what your favorite customer story is?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to pick one, mainly because we kind of see the same story playing out over and over. But, I'll talk about one that comes to my mind more recently. And it's a lender who sort of, like many lenders, relied primarily on FICO and credit reports. And they wanted to see, okay, what happens when you layer in cash flow insights? And so they leveraged Pave scores and attributes. And what they saw was that they could not only approve 10% more borrowers, they could also reduce the risk overall, the risk of delinquency, and do that more accurately. So combining the two of FICO and credit reports with cash flow insights kind of proved to be a better, more economical model. And we see that story playing out over and over. And that's why we know this is working. And when you go down to the borrower level and you see, okay, well, why our cash flow insights able to suss out more accurately good borrowers versus bad. And you kind of see things like income patterns and spending patterns and how they're repaying other debt and all these details and context that you can't get from credit reports alone is kind of what surfaces as the top is most predictive.
Yeah, that sounds like a great story. So a double win, being able to underwrite more customers at a overall lower risk. I think that everyone would sign up for that. And that's probably a great point to wrap up today's episode. So thank you very much for joining me today, Ema.
Thank you, Rucker. This was fun.
This was another episode of LendAPI Partner Podcast. Until next time, we'll see you again.